Hey guys, welcome to Fishing with the K's. If you're new to the channel, my name is Johnny, and today I'm going to show you a little snippet where my buddy Alex talks a little bit about his A-rig setup and the bass behavior during the winter season.
I would say most people know about, this time of year. It's kind of funny how the bass, in general, the book says, not this book necessarily, but the book on bass fishing talks about how they move throughout the seasons and throughout the year. So in the extreme cold and the extreme heat, they're seeking the most stable water temperature. And where it's the deepest is where it's going to be the most stable. Even some of the most stable water temperatures are when lakes are iced over because there's just not a lot of change that happens. So out in that deeper water, the other part of it is they relate to really steep stuff because all they have to do is move their tail like this and they can move 3 or 4 feet rather than when you're up in a creek, a lot of the times it's a lot more shallow and you're going to have to put more effort into moving. So
I think that's a good way to look at it. I know Brett can only stay on for a little bit, so maybe we can kind of talk a little bit about like the A-rig. I know when we first met, you were able to get on some nice smallmouth on Percy Priest Lake here in Middle Tennessee on the A-rig, and so just a high level overview. If you had to give like 2 or 3 tips for folks that are new to throwing an A-rig, what type of tips would you give them?
the number one tip is use braid. So honestly, mostly for the reason that when you fish an A-rig, you're going to get hung up at some point. And with the braid, you have a much higher chance of getting it back. So whether you straighten the hooks out or you just get it out of that, whatever it is, that braid is just so much stronger than, a 20-pound fluoro or something like that. So I fish my A-rig on 65-pound braid. You don't have to go that heavy. I know Kevin likes 50. But that's my number one tip is fishing on braid for that reason, of especially when you're new, fishing it shallow or letting it sink and waiting till it hits the bottom. You're going to get really frustrated losing those things. Another thing I would say is jig heads are really important. Once you get that fish to react on that rig, having the right hook and the right swim bait head to get them in the boat is important too. So I prefer the Dirty Jigs, Matt Allen swim bait heads. They've got a pretty heavy hook, so straightening them out is difficult. But when you get a bite, it's just coming in the boat.
Is there a certain kind of weight that you like to use for the jig heads, and you keep all 3 hooks the same? We're here in Tennessee, we can only use 3 hooks, correct?
Right. So I throw 1/8 ounce if I'm fishing up to probably 10 feet or so. Once you get past that 10-foot mark, I'll put either a 3/8 or a 1/2 ounce, something like that, in the middle, because it'll keep that rig stable, but it'll sink it faster down the water.
Is there a certain speed reel you like to use? Do you tend to gravitate more like a faster speed reel or a slower speed reel, or you don't think it really matters?
I guess it's probably a pretty average. I think he uses 7.4 to 1 Corrado. So that's not, screaming it in. It's also not slowing it down. It depends how you're fishing. If you're fishing it really shallow, 7.4 is perfect. Some of the fishing I do for like the stripe out on Old Hickory, that's throwing it out there and counting it down to 25, 30 feet and then just slow rolling it. And I do have some problems just crawling that reel, as I'm rolling it on the bottom. So
Welcome back. Hopefully you enjoyed that little snippet. If you did, go ahead and hit that like button. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel if you want to follow along in our journey. And if you want to see the full video from that live session, go ahead and check out the link in the description.